And good morning. You know, funny story, I filled in last night for Danny. Good morning, Danny. I see you in the chat already. I filled in and held down the co-host spot on the TPS report so Danny could watch the game. And, y'all, I don't watch football. It's just not my thing. I actually watched most of the game while we were live. I just had it running on one of my other monitors without the sound on and was giving running updates on the score throughout the show. I wasn't watching it closely enough to comment on any particular plays, but I was watching it closely enough to say, wow, shit, Bulldogs shut TCU down 65-7. TCU apparently did not bring their A game last night. You about to get in on this? Come on.
Your microphone's all the way over here.
Hey, that probably improves things too. But hey, look what just walked in.
Yeah, look, I gotta go to work, but damn. I figured Georgia would win. I didn't think Georgia would stomp a new mud hole in them. So, anyhow, I gotta go to work. Don't even.
All right, brother. Danny says, I think that was their A game. How sad for them, right? So, but Alex and I had a pretty good conversation last night. Legion says, can be looking zesty this morning. He smells pretty too.
You're not fully clean unless you're zestfully clean.
Oh, Jesus Christ. So anyway, last night Alex and I talked about a few things, not least of which was basically the same stuff that we talked about on the show yesterday morning, because we just came through all the high drama of the Speaker of the House election, where McCarthy just kept losing. And in a lot of ways, it's a big win. And I hate to think that the story of the Speaker is going to end up being like the Twitter files, where it's, oh, okay, guys, look, I know you're tired of hearing about it. I'm tired of talking about it. But a new big thing just happened. And this morning, it's not even a new big thing just happened. I just want to give the GOP a little bit of credit this morning, because I was pretty hard on them last night. I still don't have especially high expectations. You look at the history of the GOP when it is in control of the House. In living memory, they just kind of fail. They don't get the things done that they say they're going to get done. And I want to give some qualifiers and a little bit of work on that. I have said often that the best we can hope for as Americans is that we get Republicans in offices where they will obstruct and slow down the eternal march into the abyss. The best you can hope for from your GOP reps is that they'll slow shit down. They won't actually take measures to reverse course and repair the damage that's been done by the left. Legion's asking, wasn't there an undisclosed secret 3-page addendum to the rules package? And I don't have any new intel on that yet. But if you hear anything, Legion, if you get anything on that, definitely send it to me, and we'll take a look at it. Or just call in and give me a link and I'll pull it up and we'll talk about it. But yeah, like I was saying, my general take is that the Democrats are evil and the Republicans are a weak champion against that, right? Now, that said, I want to take just a moment and remind you guys about some of the stuff that's been happening over the last year, like the 87,000 IRS agents. And I hope you haven't forgotten about this hilarious little piece of video right here. where what we're watching is the training of the new IRS agents. And I mean, just look at these. I mean, you got a lunchbox and a bulletproof bikini top here, right? Just dainty little weak trash. And that's what we were looking at. That's what the Biden administration offered to give us. But here we go. The GOP is actually off to a surprisingly good start with their control of the House now. House Republicans passed bill that rolls back $72 billion in IRS funds. Tax back. House Republicans axe $72 billion from Biden plan for new army of 87,000 agents as they make good on a campaign promise. So this was last night. They okay, I'm gonna give this one to Legion. The non-binary police are here. Drop your pronouns and assume the position. That's right, Legion. Bohica. Bend over, here it comes again. So the House Republican majority passed a bill Monday night to claw back $72 billion from the Internal Revenue Service. Hey, that almost covers what we've pissed away on Ukraine. Not quite, but the Inflation Reduction Act included $80 billion in funding for the IRS to up tax enforcement to offset spending on climate and healthcare initiatives. That right there. They spent the bill that's being fixed back sought to spend $80 billion to offset spending on climate and healthcare initiatives. I want y'all to think about the numbers involved here. Somehow $80 billion was going to be less than A, what has been spent unnecessarily on climate and healthcare initiatives, and B, the amount of money that they expect to take from Americans by enforcing the minutia of unintelligible tax laws. So, kind of common wisdom among lawyers and police, especially prosecutors and police, is that, and we're not just talking about tax law right now, we're talking about the law in general. You are all criminals. In the current United States, you are all criminals to some degree or another. Because the law is so broad, so vague, and so intricately complex that you cannot know all of it. Even if you are somebody with a Juris Doctorate who practices for decades, you do not sufficiently know the extent and scope of the broad and vague law that is the U.S. Code that you can adequately evade just inadvertently committing a crime. Now, the likelihood in most of your cases is that whatever crimes you have committed are minuscule, should not be considered crimes, right? It's not like I'm saying, hey, the law is so complicated that we all turned into murderers, right? There are some things that you just know, right? You don't need to know it's illegal because you know that it's wrong. And, I mean, nobody argues that murder is wrong. Nobody argues against that position. Now, I will argue that there are many killings that do not constitute murder, but the word murder is not something we argue about a lot. I would also argue there are many killings that happen which are not considered murder by the law, every single abortion ever, that should be. But that would be an unnecessary tangent this morning. But the idea that $80 billion was going to generate enough revenue off of chasing down violators of the absolute inscrutable minutia of the expansive tax law of this country. That math alone should stagger your minds. Just absolutely stunning and staggering that we're just the amount of money that we're talking about. But this is maybe the first real incident in memory that I can think of a GOP House taking an actual step to reverse course on damage done by the Democrat Party. The fact, unfortunately, is that the thing conservatives conserve, elected conservatives, the only thing that they conserve is whatever the lefties got done in the last 10 years. They do not act to conserve actual American values, actual principles of limited government, of balanced budgets, of individual liberty and freedom, of American prosperity and liberty. These are not things that the GOP generally manages to make any headway on. It would be, I might sing a different song if they at least pretended like they were trying and failing to advance conservative agendas, but they don't even do that. The closest they've come is the repeal of Roe v. Wade. And let's be real. American conservative lawmakers did not make that happen. Pressure from conservative activists made that happen. And that's part of the problem. Democrat politicians are activists. Republican politicians are not. Sorry, I'm just reading a couple of comments. I might get to a couple of those. But anyway, so we were seeing a dramatic increase. They were talking about 87,000 new IRS agents. And that's something else to think about is we were talking about a bill that added $80 billion to the IRS budget, and that was going to be used to hire 87,000 agents. I'm sorry, how much are we paying these agents? Where's the rest of that money going? I mean, you could discuss an incredibly generous six-figure income for each of those 87,000 agents, and you've still got tens of billions of dollars that are not accounted for by that increase in agency. I mean, even after buying all the guns and body armor to arm those guys, you're still talking about, several tens of billions of dollars that are going to, print more W-2s? So I would have actually been very interested to see what that money was intended to be spent on. They're still getting $8 billion. I'm finding it difficult to imagine that makes the hiring of the 87,000 agents an impossibility. But Pitt Danny says, I'd like to see the job interviews for these new agents. Yeah, because let me tell you something. We looked at we did a show when that news first broke, where we looked at the actual job posting on the IRS website that was recruiting those 87,000 agents. And the job posting very clearly said that you would need to be comfortable with using deadly force in the course of your work, and it had no requirements, right? No prior military, no prior law enforcement, it had no basically job requirements at all, other than you're comfortable shooting people for money. You're comfortable taking money from law-abiding American citizens at gunpoint and using lethal force to do it. Crackshot says they should have drag show IRS job fairs. Crackshot, I bet I wouldn't even have to dig all that hard to find those. The statement from the Office of Management and Budget said, to be clear, the Treasury Secretary has already directed that none of the additional IRS resources be used to increase audit rates relative to historic levels for small businesses or households with incomes below $400,000. Yeah, that was the Joe Biden thing. Joe Biden became the president of the United States, and he said, not one American that makes as much money or less than I do. Right? He didn't say exactly that, but what he said was nobody making under $400,000 or less will be facing increased taxes or increased scrutiny. And I'm like, oh, hey, that's interesting, Joe. I wonder how you came up with that number. And yeah, we're talking about $80 billion being spent by a bill called the Inflation Reduction Act. And we talked about this on the TPS report last night with Alex. Guys, there's one thing that could be done today, right now. One thing that would switch the inflation spigot off. It would be over, right? You could return the interest rates to the low mark, and all you have to do is this one simple thing: eliminate all minimum wage law. That's it. You'd be amazed. Within a year, wages would stabilize to such an extent that it would actively alter the cost of goods and services. And that would be the end of inflation. So, yeah, I'll give some credit where credit's due. McCarthy. Now, McCarthy doesn't get the credit by himself. Obviously, it's the GOP-led U.S. House of Representatives that did this. They switched it off. They shut down the 72 of the $80 billion going to the IRS. Now, the IRS is still getting $8 billion out of the Inflation Reduction Act. Don't get that twisted. And that's completely separate from what they're getting out of the most recent omnibus. But the concessions made in order to get McCarthy elected to the speakership include things like no more omnibus, and what that means. So it's not actually no more omnibus. It's no more voting on everything in the omnibus with a single, simple up-down vote, right? So for the last, 20 years, 25 years, we've gotten this omnibus package for the spending bill, where they just take everything and wrap it up together. They publish it. It's 3, 4, 5,000 pages that nobody gets to read, and then they just vote on it and pass it. And they never fail to pass it. Sometimes they delay passing it, and we get a government shutdown, which, guys, I have never been affected by a government shutdown. There was one time that Obama chose not to pay us while I was deployed, but that wasn't even a government shutdown. He just decided not to pay the Army that month. But the government shutdowns, nope. Legion says you'd have to ban all immigration to drop the minimum wage laws. Otherwise, you'd have an ANCAP system where non-citizens do every service job. No, I disagree, Legion. Now, don't get it twisted. I would ban all immigration without hesitation, at least for a period of time. But the idea that Americans won't do certain jobs because there's kind of a trope that brown people from foreign countries come to America illegally and do the jobs Americans don't want to do for the money that Americans won't take. Bullshit. I worked in the construction business for a long time, and let me tell you what happened in the construction business. I watched it hard. Before the Civil Rights Act, there was a period where a thing was happening. Construction crews in the 50s and 60s tended to have a master mechanic, right? An electrician, a plumber, a mechanic, or whatever. They tended to have a master tradesman who was white running a crew that was largely black. And throughout the 50s and 60s, what started happening is, because you had these white guys running the crews and black guys working for them, it was the black guys working for the white guys that were making the gains and moving up to become the new foremans and the new master mechanics and the like, right? And so there was actually a trend happening there where you started to have, black guys leading crews that would be mixed black and white. And then, all of a sudden, immigration floods happened, where at the same time that some of the old white guys were either retiring and leaving their crews to their black apprentice who had grown up with them and learned the trade and become the skilled tradesman, become the master tradesman. There were white guys retiring and passing their crews and companies off to their younger black guys that worked for them. There were other all black crews that were coming in and underbidding the white guys and saying, we'll do the same work for less money. And there was beginning to be a bit of a wave in that whole industry of skilled labor, when all of a sudden you had a wave of illegal immigration come in and start doing this thing where, yeah, but we'll do it for half what they'll do it for. And what that turned into today, it's not hard to find a crew of all Mexicans where only the foreman even speaks English, and they are not working for less than the competition. They're showing up and working for a command wage, and they're getting their $20 or $30 an hour. And you'll see them. I've seen them doing roofs and doing tree work and all that kind of stuff. And that market has changed in its competition rate dramatically over the last 50 years. But the idea that they'll just do the work, right? That Americans just won't do the low-level work and won't take the low pay. That's just not the case. In fact, more and more, it's getting to be that people in America, which is not to say Americans, that's to include the hostile foreign invaders, are more demanding on their wages now. They demand higher wages consistently. Now that presents its very own problem. Now, Legion, I would agree about shutting down the immigration thing, and don't get me wrong, I personally would be happy to shut down all immigration today for a period of several years to solve a lot of problems. But the minimum wage is not the problem when you're talking about immigration. The problem when you're talking about immigration is the welfare state. Criminal aliens do not come here for work. This idea that that they brave the border so that they can get jobs and build a better life for their families back home, it's bullshit. That's the vast minority of hostile foreign invaders. What they come here is for welfare. They brave the terrible desert and the hostile conditions and the almost guaranteed rape by a coyote, not because they're coming here to get a job, but because we have an essentially unrestricted welfare state where if you're not an American citizen, you basically just get a check. You get several checks every month, no questions asked. Just, are you a non-citizen that needs a pile of money? Well, here, we happen to have all these tax slaves that are more than happy, or at least ignorant to the case, to just fund your inadequacy. Yeah, Sergeant Major says, I wish I could find some illegal aliens who work cheap. I would hire them just to screw the IRS. Yeah, buddy. There was a time, right? I mean, in the 90s, I worked some job sites where we needed an extra couple of hands. You drive by the Home Depot or the Lowe's, and you just pull up to the sidewalk in front of the store, and there's a bunch of dudes standing around. You lean out the window and you say, "Quiero tres con herramientas," right? I need 3 with tools. And 3 dudes pick up their tool bag and jump in the back of your truck, and they take what you pay them. Oh, excuse me. Legion says illegals want to work was the case during the housing boom of 04 and 08. Then real estate crashed and Obama decided to extend benefits to illegals to trap voter fauna. Somewhat. But I'm telling you, Legion, I was that period 04 to 08. So I enlisted in 05. So the period of 2000 to 05, I was working in construction and industrial. I was building houses and paper mills and all kind of stuff like that. And the illegals in those jobs, like, they were there, but they were not the bulk. But anyway, we talked last night about on the TPS report, we talked about Biden's new rule. So Biden went and visited the border yesterday, and he has announced that he intends to create a path to citizenship. He announced that he intends to create a path to citizenship for 30,000 new immigrants per month from South America and Cuba. I don't know how he intends to do that. Like we talked about last night, when Obama did it, what he did is he didn't write a new law. Instead, he wrote an executive order commanding, as the chief law enforcement officer, commanding the various law enforcement agencies at the time to simply not enforce certain laws, right? Well, Biden's talking about just straight up saying, I'm going to make 30,000 people citizens. I'm going to take 30,000 people from Cuba and South America every month and make them citizens. And he went on to say, you're not eligible for this path to citizenship if you're an illegal alien. He also went on to say that he also said that he's extending Title 42, which is just a lie, because here's what happened. You tried to drop Title 42, and the Supreme Court said no. Biden is not extending Title 42. Title 42 has been retained by a protection order from the Supreme Court. But what Biden's talking about Now, he's trying to couch it in language so that he can say that he's taking a hard stand on illegal immigration while also compromising for more of a certain type of immigration. And what he's really doing is he's basically saying, I'm going to do nothing to change the economy destroying invasion by hostile foreign actors that's happening at our southern border in crisis. So the number of illegal criminals, of criminal aliens, of hostile foreign invaders that continue to flood across our southern border as a result of Biden's not just ineptitude, not just his negligence, but if you recall back to his inauguration, at his explicit invitation. But now what he's saying is, I'm going to virtue signal a little bit about there being rules in place, and then I'm not going to do anything to change those numbers. And then on top of that, on top of the historic record high illegal border crossings that are occurring at the southern border, I'm going to go ahead and make it a point to add 360,000 more immigrants per year. Right? Now, there is room for some immigration. But, you know, this may be the only thing Canada does right. If you want to immigrate to Canada, you have to go and you have to basically get in touch with somebody who will hire you and put your hands on all the documentation to prove to the Canadian government, I have been hired to fill a job. And guys, don't think you get to call McDonald's and say, hey, I want to be a Canadian citizen. I want to emigrate to Canada. And so I'd love to flip burgers for you. No. It's got to be the kind of job that you are uniquely qualified to fill. Like, you have to beat out the competition among Canadian citizens for a job that has significant value. And then you can move and immigrate to Canada. Right? I'd be totally comfortable with the same system here. You know, you want to leave your shithole country and come live the American dream. Well, we're full. But if you're going to be the guy that cures cancer, maybe we can help you out with that. Right? You're going to bring a half a dozen anchor babies to come and suck off my welfare titties? No, thank you. We full. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and put a pin in it there. I've got some work to do. Thanks for watching this morning. We love you, and we'll see you tomorrow.